Last time my kiddos were here, we did a painting lesson. And so today we're going to talk about turning mistakes into masterpieces. Sometimes when you do a new painting, you might have a few little mistakes. Maybe your colors blend together a bit. Maybe you forgot to paint a certain part. Or maybe you even had a neighbor who had a little splash or an accident on your paper. So today I'm going to show you a few little tips and tricks for fixing those things so that way you can engage and persist and finish your work and still have a beautiful masterpiece without having to start over. All right, the first thing I want to show you is right here. You might notice that I got out of the lines a little bit. Sometimes maybe you drew really lightly with your pencil, or you can't see an outline, or just some of the colors blended together. One thing you might like to try is just creating an outline on top of your dry painting. Now the stuff I'm going to show you today, you have to have a dry painting to do. So if it's still wet, you may have to wait a little bit before you try some of these tricks. All right, so the first thing I want to show you is just creating a stronger outline around a certain area, and then you don't notice those little spots where you got out of the lines. They just don't seem quite as bad anymore when you have a nice outline. All right, so I'm just using a little Sharpie here. That's the first thing I wanted to show you, okay? The second thing I wanted to show you is maybe you were a little afraid to get into a little small area, or you forgot to bring your sky all the way down to the horizon line, or you forgot to color in a certain area. You can take different drawing media and color right on top of what you did before, and sometimes you get some interesting layering start to happen, and you can fill in some of those areas. Now I would suggest if you're going to do this, go ahead and take that crayon and color right on top of some of the other areas as well, so that way it looks like you did it on purpose. And you just kind of experiment and see if you like this, and you can layer up a few different things and just fill in some of those areas, and maybe it won't seem quite like such a big mistake. Okay, another thing you might like to try is adding texture. Sometimes when we paint, everything looks sort of the same. So you might come back on top with maybe a marker or colored pencils, and you can add some textures and patterns on top of your artwork, and you get some interesting details. You can add a little more variety that way. So that's another fun thing that you can try. Sometimes, here's an example, like my brown just really went right into my yellow and orange right there, and I just don't like it. I just really want to fix it. Oil pastels are great for coming right on top of your paint and putting a new layer on there. But if you do it in one area, you might want to do it in several areas, so that way it looks like you did it on purpose. So see right here, I'm going to come right on top of it with some oil pastels, and I'll do that in several places, not just in one. And it looks like I did it on purpose, and it fills over some of those mistakes a little better. One thing you might try is putting different layers of oil pastels on. So here I'm going to take some yellow and I'm going to go right on top. All right, so now I've got some color mixing also happening on there. Maybe I could also grab a little white and I could add different values. So this is another really cool technique. Now we've just got a little nice multimedia piece here with a lot of different things going on, okay? You can do the same thing with little accidents like this with your oil pastels or your crayons or your markers, where you can come right on top of those. So earlier I showed you to color on top with crayon. Right here I'm doing some oil pastels just so you can see the difference. But do you see how strongly that covers up that little mistake right there? And I can have a little more control with it, and I can fill in this area, and all of a sudden things aren't quite as bad as they were before, and I'm a little bit happier with how my work is turning out, okay? See, I can take a yellow and layer it right on top of there, and all of a sudden that purple glob is just a little bit better than it was before, okay? One other thing that I wanted to show you just really quick is an illustration technique that I used to use whenever I was an illustrator. I used to work for a publishing company. And one of the things we would do when we were illustrating a piece for a book is we would draw it in pencil first, then we would paint it with watercolor, and then we would come on top of it with colored pencil to add value. So I'm going to show you right here. I've got kind of I guess a dark yellow or gold right here, but I'm going to just lightly come in the edges and just add a little shadow on each one of these petals. And that can create, oh, you guys probably can't see that too good. See, that can start to add another little dimension of texture and shadows that can really look nice on top of a watercolor piece that you guys did last time. So do you see how just very lightly I'm coming on top of that? And you don't have to use just the one. You can blend multiple colors together with, oh, that one was broken. No wonder it wasn't working. You can blend multiple colors together on top of your watercolor background. This is a good way to fill in some of those ghosties, where like if you had a little white speck showing, I call those ghosties. Or you can just add a little bit of value changes, maybe some shadows, so that way it looks like the light is really shining on these areas. So do you see how I've defined that just a little bit, created a bit of a shadow around here? So you can see the difference. Now it looks like there's some darker areas in here instead of it all just being flat, one value. Now we have darker areas. Okay, so those are just a few little things you might like to try today as you are working on your painting on day 2.